Hello and good morning friends, welcome to the CECA Reset live lecture. Dear friends, with our ongoing series on management accounting, today we are conducting 5th lecture in series. Today we would be talking on application of ratio analysis for liquidity assessment in the first half, whereas in the second half we would be talking on application of ratio analysis for profitability assessment. And for this very discussion on the two topics, we have once again with us in our studios Dr. Amarjeet Kaur. Dr. Amarjeet Kaur is a professor of accounting, and she is a dean of a management school in a reputed educational institution. She is a certified management accountant. She has taught in University of a foreign land. So dear friends, let's welcome our guest Dr. Amarjeet Kaur, and let's try to understand more and more on liquidity assessment as well as profitability assessment. Hello ma'am, welcome to the lecture.
Thank you Kitika. Very good morning to you all. Today we are going to talk about how do we use ratios for assessing liquidity of a firm and profitability of a firm. So in module number 9, I am going to talk about liquidity assessment of a company. To understand it, we would be using a case study discussion format. So to begin with, I am just referring to all those ratios which we are going to cover in the liquidity assessment in this module first. We would be talking about working capital, which is a very important aspect of looking at liquidity of a company. We would be talking about current ratio of a company, followed by a quick ratio or acid test ratio. I have introduced all of them in my previous module in this regard, and I hope you all could be able to recall that. So moving forward, I would be taking a case of Q-Turn Corporation. This Q-Turn Corporation is in fact a kind of fictitious entity. I have just created it. I am not using the real name of the company, the data I am using from. So, but otherwise, the data is an actual for a multinational company, but the name has been changed here as Q-Turn Corporation, and the data belongs to 2 financial years, 2007 and 2006. So I would want you to have a look at the slide in front of you. We have data for 2 years, 2006 and 2007. For 2006 and 7, kindly have a look. I'm showing you here, assets. Assets are given into two parts. One is current assets and then another is fixed asset. So have a look at the slide. Current assets comprises of your cash amount. To begin with, cash is cash, accounts receivable. These are the two important primary current assets. Cash is $30,000 in 2007 and $20,000 in 2006 it was. Now accounts receivables was 17,000 and now they are 20,000 in this current year 2007. The next item is your inventory. Inventory was 10,000, the third row from the right I am referring to. So inventory was 10,000 and now it is 12,000. Prepaid expenses is the fourth current asset given, and the amount was 2,000 in 2006 and 3,000 in 2007. If you sum them up together, the total current assets for 2007 is coming out to be 65,000, and for 2006 it was 49,000. So moving forward, so this is the total of current assets. Moving forward, if you have a look at PPE, property, plant and equipment, so in that we have first thing as land. So land was 123,000 in 2006, and now this year the value of land company possess is 165,000. You may call it as 1,65,000. And the next is building and equipment. So building was 1,28,000 and now it is 1,16,390. Then if you have a look at the total column for property and equipment, so it is 251,000 for the year 2006 and 281,390. So I am putting the cursor so that you could catch the value I am referring to. So 281,390 is the total value of the property, plant and equipment, which we call as PPE for this company, Q-Ton Corporation Limited. So if we sum up the two things, you know, this 65,000 for example here, and this 281,390 here, which is PP value. So the total of these two figures is 346,390 for 2007, and same way if we move forward to 2006 value, which is previous year under discussion. So 49,000 is the value of current assets here, and 251,000 is the value of PPE. The sum of these two is 300,000 or 3 lakhs. So moving forward, this was the balance sheet, and if you would like to, for the better understanding, you can note down these values. This will help you to understand the case better, right? So let's move forward. Here is again the balance sheet of the same company, but now this is the liability side. So the previous balance sheet, just have a look, this was asset side, right? And this slide which I am projecting right away is, you know, the liabilities and the equity side of the company. So the current liabilities is the first thing which is given. My cursor is just indicating that. The accounts payable is they were 39,000 in 2007 and 40,000 in 2006. So 40,000 to 39,000. Notes payable and short term liabilities, you know, there were 2,000 notes payable which are short, and there are 3,000 in 2007. So if we sum them up together, these two values 39,000 and 3,000, the total comes out to be 42,000 for 2007, and if we sum up these two values for 2006, the total comes out to be 42,000 again. So which means the total current liabilities for the company in 2006 and 7 remains same. Now moving forward, the next thing is indicating about the long term liabilities. So the long term liabilities, we have just one head given here. It reads as notes payable and long term liabilities, and so this notes payable are long term. So you would be surprised, here it was notes payable short term, right? This is another learning. And just going down, it says notes payable long term. It means a company can hire loans, you know, in the form of notes payable for short duration as well as for long duration. So if it is for short duration, less than for 1 year, it is known as current liability, and if it is for more than 1 year, we call it as long term liabilities, as in indicated here, right? So the value of notes payable for 2006 was 78,000 and for 2007 is 70,000. So total liabilities, which is this 42,000 and 70,000 here, the sum up of this these two figures is coming out to be 112,000. So 1,12,000 is the total liabilities, current as well as long term, for this company in 2007, and it was 42 plus 78,000, which is coming out to be 120,000 for 2006, 1,20,000. So it means the current total liabilities have gone down for the company from 2006 to 2007. To understand this balance sheet further, the next is stockholders equity column. So here we have common stock or equity stock, which we call as common stock as well. Multinational companies you will find, and especially now when IFRS is coming to get into place, the most of the companies which would be using this word would be common stock, not equity stock. So the common stock is at the rate of ₹1 or $1, you may read it as you want, which is the par value of the share. So it means company issued these share at $1 each. So which means company has 27,400 shares as of date in 2007, and they had 17,000 of share in 2006, right? So since the par value of share is $1, so number of share multiplied by $1 gives you the value in monetary unit. So which comes out to be 27,400 and 17,000. So moving forward, next is additional paid in capital, which is 158,100 and 113,000 in 2006. The total paid up capital, which comprises these two things, 27,400 plus 158,100, the total of these two rows gives you the value of 185,500, and total of these two rows gives you the total paid up capital of 130,000. It means paid up capital comprises what we issue at a face price or par price plus any premium. So additional paid up capital generally represents when we issue share capital on a premium price. So that's how this 158,000 is there in the balance sheet of this company. So moving forward, the next row shows retained earning. Retained earning, as we discussed in previous modules, is the amount of undistributed profits. Company had profits, but company did not distribute them to the shareholders. So that is what is known as retained earnings. So if we sum up these two things together, this paid up capital as well as retained earning, the total would be your stakeholders equity, the total value of stakeholders equity, which is coming out to be 234,390 for the company in 2007 and 180,000 for this company in 2006. So now after this, the last row of this balance sheet liability side is showing the total of liabilities and shareholders equity, which certainly should be equal to the total of asset side, which we discussed in the previous slide. So which is giving you 346,390. So which is basically this value 234,390 plus your total liabilities 112,000. So sum of this plus this value is equal to the last value you have 346, and so is true in this case of 2006. 120,000 plus 180,000 gives you total of 300,000. So I hope you are clear with the balance sheet values of this particular case under discussion. Moving forward, I am showing you some data pertaining to income statement of the company. So as we all know, income statement comprises of revenues, expenses, the gross margin, net margins, profit before tax, profit before interest, and etc. So I am giving you a consolidated format of income statement here on this slide. Kindly have a look. The income statement for this company is for the year ending 31st December 2006 and 2007, as is clear on the slide. The first row is showing the net sales, and net sales for 2006 was for 450,000, and for 2007 it is 494,000. So which means 4,94,000. Moving forward, we are subtracting cost of goods sold, which is 127,000 in 2006 and 140,000 for 2007. The difference of cost of goods sold and net sales gives you the value of gross margin, which comes out to be 323,000 for the year 2006 and 354,000 for the year 2007. Now it would be better, I would recommend if you could note down these values, which will help us to understand ratios in next few minutes. The next item which we subtract from gross margin is operating expenses. Operating expenses are 249,000 for 2006 and 270,000 for 2007. So the difference of these two values, which is 354 and 270,000 in 2007 and 323 and 249 in 2006, the difference of these two is coming out as 74,000 and 84,000 respectively for 2006 and 7, and this is known as operating income. So moving forward, if we subtract interest expense out of this operating income, the difference we get is net income before tax. So interest expenses for the company are 8,000 and 7,300. The difference is coming out net income before taxes, which is 66,000 for the year 2006 and 76,700 for the year 2007. So if we subtract any taxes payable by the company, which is 30% in this case, so the amount is 30% of this value, which we will subtracting, and is coming out to be 19,800 for the company in 2006 and 23,010 for 2007. So the difference of income before tax, this 66,000 and 76,700 from the tax payable is coming out to be net income, which is 46,200 and 53,690. So now we would move to the discussion on actual application of certain ratios to find out liquidity of the company. So to find out the liquidity, we primarily use information from balance sheet, not from income statement. So we generally use the value of all current assets and current liabilities to find out how well or how good a company is in terms of its liquid condition. So have a look at the slide here. We are using this information of Q-TON Corporation for the year 2007 only. So this information is actually sorted from the same slides which were just shared a minute ago with you. So Q-TON Corporation's data for cash in 2007 is 30,000. Accounts receivables in the beginning of the year were 17,000, at the end of the year are 20,000. Inventory is again given, beginning of year it was 10,000, end of the year it is 12,000. So the total current assets, if you look at the previous slide, even I discussed with you, so it was 65,000 here, right? Total current assets, and the total current liabilities here 42,000, right? So these are the two values which we need for the purpose of finding out working capital. So if you subtract 42,000, which is your current liability, from 65,000, which is the current assets for the company, the difference would be known as your working capital. Now this working capital could be correlated to inventory, or it can be correlated to any other item for the purpose of analysis. So this is the first thing which we use in analyzing liquidity of a company. The second thing which I would like to use to understand the liquidity of a company is current ratio. We all know current ratio is calculated by dividing current assets with current liabilities, as the slide is showing in front of you. So this is a measure to find out how well a company is to meet up its immediate liabilities or short-term liabilities. So let's have a look how can we calculate this for the company. So in question, we have 65,000 of current assets, as we know, and 42,000 of current liabilities. So if we divide current assets of 65,000 with that of 42,000 of current liabilities, the ratio comes out to be 1.55. And if I write it 1.55 is to 1, that would be a pure expression of ratio or pure representation of ratio. So how can we interpret this ratio for the purpose of liquidity? That is more important. So for the purpose of understanding, the first or the foremost point is we generally compare it with rule of thumb. I hope you can recall that, the rule of thumb to analyze current ratio value is that current asset should be twice than the current liability. It means if I have a liability of 100 rupees to someone, I must have total current assets of 200 at least, if not more than that. So are we, is this particular company, Q-Ton Corporation, is qualifying that yardstick, that rule of thumb? No, it is not. We have the current ratio of 1.55 is to 1, whereas the standard ratio is 2 is to 1. So primarily it is failing the test. Now after that, we can actually analyze it further before drawing any conclusion, and I recommend that we must calculate quick ratio, or also known as acid test ratio. After that we can comment upon either the company is doing well or not. So to analyze the quick ratio, we need what? We need your current assets, then we need to subtract any value of stock or any value of the prepaid expenses out of the total current assets. So let's have a look at the slide for this company, the data we just discussed in the beginning. So let's have a look here, and you see we have cash 30,000, we have accounts receivables of 20,000, inventory of 12,000 and prepaid expenses of 3,000. So that is how the total current assets were 65,000, as we discussed earlier for the purpose of current ratio. Now out of this 65,000, we should be subtracting this inventory of 12,000 and the prepaid expenses of 3,000. So which means 65,000 minus 15,000, the remainder would be 50,000, and that would be your quick asset. So if we divide the quick asset with the current liabilities, which we already know are 42,000, and that gives you the value of your quick asset ratio. So here on the slide I am showing you the value of how did we calculate the quick ratio for the company or acid test ratio for the company. So have a look at this quick ratio for the company. 50,000, as we just discussed how we reached to the value of this 50,000, and subtract it, after subtracting prepaid expenses and stock from current assets, we got this value of 50,000, right? Divide it with the current liabilities, and the current liabilities for the company, as we have already seen, are 42,000. So the ratio comes out to be 1.19. So now let's have a discussion on the liquid condition of the company. So primarily we discussed 3 points here, and now it is the time for discussing liquid condition of the company. So we have what in hand? We have two things in hand, important two things. One, that current ratio is 1.55 is to 1, and your quick ratio is 1.19 is to 1, right? So quick ratio, if you recall the discussion, we discussed that the quick ratio should be at least 1 is to 1. So quick ratio is more for this company is more than the standards, right? 1 is to 1, because it is 1.19, and the current ratio is less than the standard. So which one of the two is the real test? Because we have two ratios in hand. So which of the two ratios is the real test? So when it comes to talk about a stringent rule or a stringent test, the second one, which is your quick ratio, or also known as acid test ratio, is rather a more important, more stringent test and more reliable test as well. So looking at this ratio of 1.19, the quick ratio, we can certainly or easily say that company is in a very good liquid condition to meet up its liability. So what happened? How could our ratio was better when it comes to liquid ratio or quick acid ratio than that of the current ratio? The reason would be the value of inventory in the total value of the current assets. The total value of current assets for the company were, I hope you remember, 65,000. Yes. And we subtracted two things out of that. One was prepaid expenses 3,000 and 12,000 of rupee of inventory. It means 12,000 forms what? Almost 1/4 of the current assets, rather less than that. So 12,000 being less than 25% is about 22% of 65,000. So company is not, the total value of current asset is not kind of fictitious or kind of any value which can create alarm in the eyes of any analyst. Reason being, inventory is of a reasonable amount. There is no fixed rule, but more the amount of inventory, more riskier would be a company. That's the point I want to make out in terms of its liquidity. And since this Q10 Corporation has inventory of only 12,000, which is less than 1/4 of the total value of current assets of 65,000, so we can say with certainty that company is doing well when it comes to its liquidity condition. So this is a conclusion. With the help of case we discussed today, we can draw for the Q10 Corporation. Thank you for your patience hearing. Thank you. Good afternoon to you all. Welcome back to module number 10 in the management series of management accounting. Friends, in this particular module we are going to talk about how can we assess profitability of a company by using profitability ratios available in accounting literature. For that purpose, we are going to discuss profitability from two aspects. One from profitability when we correlate it with sales, and another is when we correlate profitability with the investments made in a company or capital employed in the company. Moving forward, we would be using the case of Q10 Corporation, which we used for the previous module as well. So we will be using the same data for the purpose of ease of listeners or audience. Let's begin with the same data here. Have a look at the slide of the company. To assess the profitability, we use generally the data given in the income statement when we want to correlate profitability with the sales. And when we want to correlate the profitability with the terms of investment, we use both the data from income statement as well as data from balance sheet. So have a look here on the slide. We have income statement given in front of you, and refer to the last figure where I am putting my cursor, last row here. The profit for the company is 53,690. This is net income for Q-Ton Corporation, which is certainly after deducting the tax, right, of 23,010 and interest expense, which means my income before tax is 76,700 and net operating income for the company is 84,000 and gross margin is 354,000, right. So this is something important to note down, that the gross margin are 354,000, a huge amount, whereas your net operating income is 84,000, a very steep downward trend in the total margins after operating expenses. Gross margin being so high, but operating margin for the companies are quite noticeably very low. So moving forward, that how do we use profitability ratios? So let's study a few ratios or discuss few ratios which are going to be used by present shareholders or future shareholders, so prospective shareholders. So those particular ratios we generally use are earning per share, dividend payout ratio, or market price earning ratio, or price earning ratio, PE. So let's discuss these three ratios first. So for that we would be using the data given on the slide here. So we need net income available to shareholders which we can distribute. So have a look, we have 53,690 income which is available for distribution to shareholders, since we have already deducted interest and tax both. Now the next question is, what we show or what we deduct from this net income is the amount of preferential dividend, which is not there in this given case, because if you looked at the balance sheet, which is right here again in front of you, so we have just the common stock here, this row where I am putting the cursor. So we just have common stock, we do not have preferential stock. Common stock stands for equity stock, right? As we know, generally the shareholders are two types. One is common stockholders or equity stockholders, we may call them by any of the name, and the second category of shareholders is preferential or preference shareholders, right? Since there is no preferential shareholder given in this data, so we have just the common stockholders available. So the amount of profits available here, look at the cursor, 53,690 belongs to equity shareholders. So when we have to calculate this equity earning per share ratio, EPS, so have a look at the slide I am going to show you right away. It shows that we can calculate EPS by dividing the income available to equity shareholders by average number of common share or outstanding. So the net income available to these shareholder is 53,690, divided by the average equity shareholders. So the average amount, or sorry, not amount, average number of shareholders would be 17,000 plus 27,400 divided by 2. So that's how we calculate average number of shares which is outstanding for the company. So earning per share comes out to be 2.42. So this is the value. So it means one shareholder is earning $2.42. If I have 10 shareholders, you can multiply this with 10. If someone holds 100 shares, he can multiply with 100. So this would be his total, or someone's total earnings in that company made through dividend. Not dividend, I'm sorry, through earnings, in terms of claim on income. So the second ratio which we use to find out how well a company is doing from shareholders perspective is a price earning ratio. So the price earning ratio can be calculated by dividing the market price per share with earning per share. So this is the formula in front of you. So let's move forward. For the company, we are assuming the market price is $20. Right? You can assume $30, $40 or maybe $200. So whatever is the market price of a share of par value ₹1 or $1, and if you divide it by the earning per share. So EPS, which we calculated on the previous slide, is becoming a denominator here, right? So divide the market price with the value of earning per share, that gives you the ratio in times, not in pure form, so it is showing you 8.26. So it means the market price of the company's share is 8.24 times higher than the earnings made by the shareholder per share, right? I hope you could get that well. Now the third ratio which we use for the purpose of shareholders analysis, then we use it dividend payout ratio. Dividend payout ratio can be calculated by dividend which is paid by the company per share, and we divide it by earning per share. It means earning per share is used in both the ratios as denominator for dividend payout ratio, as well as the previous ratio which we just discussed, market price, that was price earning ratios. So in both the cases, we have this earning per ratio as denominator. So here your dividend payout ratio for Q10 Corporation is coming out by dividing 2. So where does this 2 comes from? So $2 is being paid to each shareholder as dividend for the year 2007. So it means everyone who was holding shares, they are getting $2 per share as dividend. How much did company earn? Company earned 2.42, out of which company is paying $2. It means 100% of the earnings which were earned, or which belong to shareholders, 2.42 per share. So they are not distributed, rather $2 have been distributed each share per share. So it means the company's payout ratio, dividend payout ratio, or is also known in short form payout ratio, is 82.46%, which is not bad when it comes to paying off. Company is paying quite a high percentage of the earnings made by shareholders. I am not saying it is good or bad, it is a different subject matter of discussion. It has many more things to look at. The company has opportunities for growth or not. There are many models to discuss that, so which I am excluding for discussion. This is not in the ambit of the topic under study. So we are just saying that this company has been paying a good percentage of earnings per share, because it is distributing 82.6% of the earnings made by shareholders in the form of dividend, right? So now we will discuss few ratios about the profitability, but with respect to investment. And the most important ratio here is, how much company earns on the investment made, and we call it as return on investment. As I said, in the previous module, that return on investment is calculated by taking the profit before interest, tax and dividends, and divided by the average of the investment, and that value gives you that how much a company is earning on the investments made by it. So let's have a look at the slide. You have a formula in front of you which says return on investments are equal to, I'm just going to show you the slide, just a second please. Yeah, kindly read it as return on investment, not on total asset. So kindly read it as return on investment. The return on investment is net income before interest, tax and dividend divided by average capital employed. So this is the formula. If we have to calculate the same for the company, so we have total income available to the shareholder 76,700, which was before interest and tax. So let's have a look. Since there was no dividend distributed in this amount, let's have a look on the slide which showed you this data, where this value coming from. So let's have a look on the income statement for the company. So here, so net income 76,700, right? This is before tax, and if we add back the amount of 7,300, which is interest expense, which comes out to be 84,000. I have purposefully not shown this 84,000 as one value on the slide, and I have segregated this net income before taxes and then added back the interest expense, because you may have more than these items which were shown on the slide. So what we say that we have to be carefully taken the amount of income available before interest, before tax and before dividend. In this case it comes out to be 84,000, right? So this 84,000 is divided by the capital on an average basis. So let's have a look at the slide. So the average capital available which is used in the business is 3,04,390. So which is the average comes from dividing the beginning capital plus the ending capital by 2. So capital employed, as I said, there are two ways you can calculate. You can calculate the capital employed by adding the shareholders fund with the long-term capital, long-term debts used by the company, right? Or you can else calculate it with the help of your working capital plus long-term debts employed by the company, fixed assets plus the your working capital employed by the company. So either of the way. So here we have taken the average capital of 3,04,390. So the ratio comes out to be 27.59%, which is not bad, but there is no rule of thumb to compare this with. So how we will how can we comment upon on the health of the Q10 Corporation, whether company is earning good or not, company is doing well when it comes to return on investment or not. So what I would recommend is this, that you should be comparing these ratios with that of other companies working in the industry this business is working in. So that is the best way to compare the ratios in case we do not have rule of thumb. So generally 27.59%, which is almost 27-28%, is considered to be a good return. This also depends upon the economic condition. This company performs where, which part of the world. It all depends on that aspect as well. So no fixed rule of thumb to compare with. Moving forward, we will discuss a few more ratios pertaining to profitability. So let's have a look here. I am going to talk about return on common stockholders equity. It's also known as return on equity shareholders fund. In the books of Indian authors, you will come to know the title or the nomenclature used for this ratio is return on equity shareholders, and in some foreign authors books you will find that this ratio is nomenclated as return on common stockholders equity. So the formula given is in front of you: net income less the preference dividend divided by the average stockholders equity, right? This is the formula. In this case, we know that 53,690 is the amount of net income which is available to shareholders for distribution. Since there was no preference shareholders, so no dividend for preference shareholders is there. So that is why this value is 0. So since company has been using only equity shareholders, so in the denominator we have average stockholders equity. The average stockholders equity is 180,000 plus 234,000. Where does this values comes from? These two values comes from your liability side of the balance sheet at the bottom, where we discuss stockholders fund. There we have these two values. If you noted down them well, this 180,000 and 234,000 was the second last value in the stock stockholders funds column. So I can show you again that by switching back to those slides. So just have a look here on the slide and you will come to know where we did get this slide value from. Here is the value. Yes, have a look. 234,090 and 180,000 is the sum of the common stock, additional paid in capital. So this is total paid in capital plus the retained earning. If you have noted down before, they should be with you and there should not be any problem in correlating this with. So now let's look at the slide which was under discussion, and the slide under discussion was how much is the value of the ratio, and the value is coming out to be 25.91. Yeah, so this is here in front of you. So as again I would say, we do not have any rule of thumb, but company we can simply conclude that company is doing well because is earning about 26% on the investment made by equity shareholders, right, on equity shareholders fund. So this measure will basically indicates how well company employs the owner's investment, because we are not including any debt component in the denominator. We are just including the average of the stockholders fund here, right? So that is why this particular ratio indicates that how well a company is employing its resources employed by the owners or invested by shareholders or owners. Moving forward, now we would be discussing few more ratios pertaining to profitability, and after that we will discuss in detail the overall profitability or of this particular company. So next two ratios which I am going to discuss are gross profit ratio. In fact, we will be discussing three: operating profit ratio and net profit ratio. So these are the three commonly used ratios when we want to study profitability with respect to sales. So in this case, the data comes from income statement only, and I hope you all have values with you of the income statement. So just to recall that so far in profitability we have covered profitability ratios pertaining to, which are of interest to shareholders. There were three ratios we discussed: earning per share, dividend payout ratio, and market price earning ratio. Then we discussed two important ratios: return on investment and return on equity shareholders fund, when it comes to correlating returns to the investment made in a company. We can do that for more aspects, for more variables, like we can correlate the profits available to the assets employed. So simply divide net profits with that of the average assets employed by the company. So in that case we will be able to calculate the returns on assets employed in a business. And now we are here on the last aspect of profitability, which is when we correlate profitability to sales, and we would be talking about three important ratios. So to begin with, let's talk about the first ratio, which is gross profit ratio. The gross profit ratio is calculated by dividing gross profit of a company with the net sales of a company. So when I say net sales comprises both the sales which are made on cash plus the sales which are made on credit. So they are clubbed together, and we will subtract any returns out of them. So sales returns are subtracted from the total sales made, cash and credit, and the difference, the remainder would be your net sales. And gross profit is, as you know, is the difference between your net sales minus cost of goods sold. So cost of goods sold for the company in question. So we will be referring to slides where you just referred in the beginning that how much is the amount of profit and how much is the amount of cost of goods sold and gross margin. So I would be referring back to the same very data given in this case. Have a look on the slide. We have gross margins for the company 354,000, right? And net sales were 494,000. We can easily assume that these net sales of 494,000 are after adjusting returns, and the 450 were in 2006. We are calculating ratios only for 2007, so I am referring to the net sales figure of 2007 only, right? So cost of goods sold for the company was 140,000, and that's how your gross margin is 354,000. So if you if you divide this 354,000 with 494,000, which is sale amount, the ratio which you will get would be known as gross profit ratio, right? And this comes out to be 71.65%. So which is a very, very good ratio, when it comes to referring to most of the industry standard. But this is not enough. We cannot conclude, even though this particular ratio is giving you a very good value, 71.65%. Even then, we can't say that this is a very good ratio. Your company is doing very well when it comes to return on sales, because we have yet to observe. We have the working of the company, or the results of the company in terms of its operating profit ratio and net profit ratio. So to calculate operating profit ratio of the company, we have operating expenses of 270,000, and so that is why your net operating income is coming out to be 84,000. You can have a look at the cursor. So I am showing you 84,000 of net operating margin, which is after subtracting operating expenses of 270,000 from 354,000. Now, if we divide this operating expense, operating income or operating margin of the company out and we divide it by net sales of 494,000, the answer you would get would be known as operating ratio, operating margin ratio, or operating profit ratio. And the same way we would be calculating the third ratio for the company, which is known as net sales ratio, net profit ratio. So the net profit is the ultimate test for assessing profitability by correlating it to sales. So the net profit amount is 53,690, and if we divide it with net sales, the value of the ratio we are going to get is 10.87. This is something very, very important to note down. The net income of the company is 53,690, right? And if we divide it with your net sales, it is giving you the net profit ratio of 10.87, right? So this is something very, very interesting to study. Now, company has your gross margin of 71.65 and has this net profit margin of 10.87%. Now, let's have a discussion. We need not to look at slides anymore. We are done with the values here. Now we will spend next 3 minutes on this, on understanding how well this company has been doing in terms of its profitability. So to compare results, we have 3 important ratios in hand: gross profit ratio, operating profit ratio, and the net profit ratio. So I'm ignoring the middle one. Now, the gross profit ratio being so high for the company, more than 70%, and leading to the net profit ratio of just 10.87, so about 11%. What does it mean? It means the operating expenses of the company were so high for the year 2007 that it led to us such a reduced amount of net margin. It means a company need to revisit on the expense pattern of the company, because after earning 72% or 71 point something, you are just ending up with just 11%, about 11%, which is definitely not a very good sign. It means company was very good when it comes to managing material, when it comes to managing direct wages or machinery, because those are the costs which influence the gross margin. Gross margin, we were talking about cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold comprises your cost on materials, raw materials which were you using in the manufacturing, the cost of wages you paid for, so all direct expenses. So the difference of cost of goods sold and sales was very good. There was such a huge amount available for company to spend on operating expenses, which company seems to be not utilizing efficiently. Company has spent a lot more than expected. That's why company ended up with low net margins. So this is the learning from the case I took, and I believe I am able to illustrate it well, because I purposefully selected a case which could actually help you with such a data that which you could correlate well when to analyze better and a most effective way that how profitability can be studied from operating expenses perspective as well as net margins perspective. So thank you for your patience hearing.
With this note, thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again. And dear friends, if you want to give your feedback for this particular lecture, then you can mail us at info.cc@nic.in. We would be meeting again very soon and would be discussing more on management accounting. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.